Hello, this is Luke here from Purpose Property Buyers Agents. In this video, I'm going to be sharing you the detailed numbers on one of my recent deals and how I plan to turn this deal from one property into two properties, creating hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in the process and massive cash flow to allow me to hold this deal and then refinance it and continue doing these types of deals again and again. And that's exactly what this slide deck's going to cover. How I purchased this deal in March 2025 while there was a cyclone happening and people were battening down the hatches, and I was able to source a great opportunity for myself and my family to create wealth, complete a project, and add value into the future. So this is the deal. This is located at 25 Harold Street in Bundamba. Bundamba is located in Ipswich City Council, roughly 45 minutes from Brisbane and about 10 to 15 minutes from the centre of Ipswich. It's got access to the CBD on both sides. It's landlocked in terms of the location, and this property specifically is up on a hill, which means it has an elevated view. It looks out over the suburb. It's flood free, and it's got a very big block, which allows me to do some further development potential. As you can see here, I purchased the property in March 2025 for a purchase price of $638,000. Now, in my opinion, this deal was probably worth at the time around the $700,000 price point, but I was able to make an unconditional offer. So it wasn't subject to building a pest, it wasn't subject to finance, and that allowed me to knock down the price by about 50 to 60K in this example because the sellers were motivated to sell at that point in time, and there had just been a cyclone the week before, which means that buyer demand had significantly dropped at that period of time. I took advantage of buying this deal for me as the right opportunity in the next step of my personal property portfolio. So let's now unpack the key reason as to why I like this deal. And that reason is land value and land size. The land of this block is 1,133 square meters. Now you can see that there's a slope here, and we can work with slopes when we're doing developments, but it does add extra costs if you're going to retain and build a property off the back. This also has some overlays on it. It's got a mining overlay, and it also has a 15% slope at the very back of the block, which means it is more difficult to build over that type of envelope in Ipswich City Council. So what do the numbers look like on this specific deal? Well, the property currently rents for $495 per week, which is around that 4% gross yield, which means it's reasonable to hold over a period of time with no reno, no work required out the gate, and currently rented for that price when I purchased the deal, which allows me to focus on the second phase, which is that development. And before I've even done the development, the property has had some really significant growth because I bought very well. Today's value would be comfortably between $720,000 to around that $800,000 price point. And there's a recent sale on the street for around $790,000 with a very similar house and a very similar block. That growth means I can access equity and use those funds to go towards doing the building out the back. So what exactly is the plan with this specific deal? Well, the idea is to build a secondary dwelling. And all that means is building a house out the back. You can see here, there's a front house and there's a rear house. Ideally, I'm going to be building a 4-bed, 2-bath home, potentially with a carport outside, and you can see there's a big amount of space on the block. These lines down here show the very steep aspect of the block, and I potentially will move this house a little bit further up the block to reduce my retaining costs and get it through council as far as an approved project. I really like these types of deals because it's 2 full-size houses on a single block. Not a 2-bed, 1-bath dwelling out the back, but a 4-bed, 2-bath project home added. So essentially 2 full-size homes on one title, or if I'm able to get a dual occupancy certificate, it's 2 homes on 2 titles. Now, as a chartered accountant myself, we need to understand when doing any type of project, what are the costs involved? So let's pull apart the numbers as they stand. The expected cost to build the house is $268,000, and that's exactly what I've got on contract price with my builder at the moment to build a 4-bed, 2-bath home. On top of that, I need to pay for a lot of other things. Development applications with council to try and get the dual occupancy, and be aware of the mining overlays, a driveway, a carport, retaining, other costs involved, connections, electrical upgrades, and all those types of things. So I'm expecting the project to roughly cost around $350,000 in total. With that information in mind, let's unpack the numbers in terms of the before and after scenario for this specific deal in Ipswich, Queensland. Now, the first metric is the cost base. The deal cost me $638,000. The expected project is all in around the $1 million mark. The rent at the moment is $480 to $495 per week. The end product will be around $1,100 to $1,200 per week, split between the front and back dwelling. Then we've got the yield, so roughly a 4% gross yield initially, and then we've got the 6% gross yield once we complete the project. Finally, we're going from one dwelling into two dwellings, meaning that I'm creating value and creating equity in the process. Now, as you can see, the total project is going to cost me around $1 million with about $1,100 to $1,200 per week rent. And if I can strata title these assets, the end value would be roughly around $1.4 million, meaning that I created around $400,000 worth of equity by undertaking this type of project, taking on the risk to create another dwelling, and getting separate strata titles for the front and back dwelling. Now, let's say council rejects that. They don't want a dual occupancy certificate. They're not going to accept that development, and they only allow it as a secondary dwelling. The end value is likely to drop by around $200,000, which is unfortunate if that's the case and it plays out that way. But I'll still have made around $200,000 worth of equity by undertaking the project, and the rent is going to be around that 6% gross yield, meaning that with 80% debt or even close to 100% debt, the property really shouldn't be costing me any money, which is really exciting. Now, if you're interested in these types of deals, whether it's in Southeast Queensland or in the Melbourne market, myself and the team at Purpose Property can help you source deals with upside potential, whether that's adding a granny flat, a full secondary dwelling as a strata title, or a subdivision/development opportunity. We help find and source these types of deals for clients. And we work closely with town planners to vet and negotiate these types of deals to make sure that you have a high likelihood of success. The reality is doing these types of projects makes me a far more active investor than just buying a property and setting and forgetting. But as you can see from the numbers, in my opinion, it's absolutely worth it. You get a front home which is growing in value. You're getting cash flow while you do a project and build out in the rear of the block. You've got equity creation between $200,000 to $400,000 depending on council approvals. And you're creating that passive income by the total project site generating over $50,000 a year in terms of gross rent. So I'm really excited to share the journey with you guys on the YouTube channel, and I'm open and honest about what I'm doing in my personal property portfolio. If you could do me a huge favor and like this video, because I do share the numbers and the locations and addresses of these exact deals, it would really help me out. Head over to purposeproperty.com.au if you want to buy a property in Southeast Queensland or Melbourne in the next 3 to 6 months, and give this video a click somewhere over here for more things real estate, renovating, and financial freedom. I'll see you in this video. Make sure you give it a click. Peace.